Up to this point, I had minimal experience with Subnautica. I think I watched a Let's Play once, like years ago when it was still in beta or something. And then I watched someone play it, I think also still in beta, for like 30 minutes. And then that Let's Play that I watched before, I did not watch the whole thing. I only got bits and pieces. And after playing it now, I minimally saw anything, very minimally. But I finally decided, I'm gonna play it for myself. Oh, also there's a sequel. Well, let's just start with the base game. We'll see how I feel afterward. And normally I don't really play survival type games because there's a lot of things about survival games I don't like, and I was kind of feeling that here. Like you've got your food and water meter, you've got like your health meter, which is separate. Then you've got like two other meters. What are they? The oxygen and I thought there was something else, but I can't think of what it is. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just crazy. But like there's so many things to think about, and I think the worst one, the one I hate the most, is the fact that you have to keep feeding yourself and giving yourself water in this one, which it's just a lot to manage. I mean, I did play on, you know, everything on, not extra hard, but every base thing on, because I want the full experience. But yeah, just some of those survival elements, just I don't really like them, which is why I never play this type of game. But I thought why not? The one thing that I really didn't like is you don't really get any weapons. You get like a knife, and that's about it. And it's not great. It doesn't do a whole lot. Actually, I think you get torpedoes at some point, but I never used those because by that point I could just sidestep everything, and it was like, it's just not worth it. Why even bother? Um, yeah, there's no real weapons, so a lot of the, I guess, like enemies, the aggressive mobs, is just like, why even bother? Most of the time they avoid you anyway, and even if it's like the big ones that you really want to avoid, it's like you really don't need to go over to those parts. You can really just avoid most of that. So that's great. I did also another thing I don't generally like, depending on how it's done, is the day-night cycle, which is another thing I noticed in Subnautica. The day-night cycle in Subnautica is just kind of really bad, actually. I don't know if they improve it in Below Zero, but in base Subnautica, just the day-night cycle sucks. What generally makes a day-night cycle good is you have a risk reward, and if you have that, then I would say that's a good day-night cycle. An okay one is at least having some differences that would, encourage you to go and do stuff during that night cycle. But with Subnautica, how it works is during the day, you got everything. You can go explore, you can dive deep and go places, and you can, even if you go really deep, you can usually see just fine. But at night, it gets really dark, and that's about it. Really, as far as I could tell, the only thing that changed in the day night cycle is at night it gets really dark and you can't see anything. And it's like, that's it? I mean, some things glow, I guess, but that doesn't really do anything. Like, let's take something else. Like in Pokemon, when it's at night, that has an okay day night cycle because at night you find different Pokemon. And that's about it, but at least it's something. And then you've got something like, I don't know, Minecraft, where, monsters come out at night, so it's more dangerous, but they give you experience in special drops. So there's that risk reward. You risk the monsters, but you get rewarded by fighting them. And, that's a good day night cycle. But Subnautica, there was no reason to go out at night. Or there wasn't any reason to not just go to the surface and wait for morning if, I didn't have a way to fast pass the time. So I would say this is a situation where the day-night cycle is just bad. There's no reason for it. You might as well just have it always day or add something for nighttime. Like anything. even if it's just risk, which would be bad, but hey, at least there's like more of a reason than a minor inconvenience. But it's like, oh, well, it's actually dangerous. You shouldn't be out here. Like, no, it's just inconvenient because you can't see and you have to have your flashlight on or whatever and waste whatever batteries you're using. It's just kind of frustrating, you know? But anyway, enough about that kind of stuff. Um, the I I wasn't really sure what the main story was. I mean, I knew you crash land on a planet and then you have to survive. Like that's about all I knew going in. Apparently, you're supposed to find a way to leave, which, all right, sure, absolutely. And then you also have to cure your disease, which I did not know about at all. So that's interesting. It kind of starts out, you crash land on the planet, and then you're like, okay, well, I have to survive first. You find food, water through any source, whatever, and that's all well and good. But then you're like, okay, I'm getting transmissions from people who crash landed also. Bunch of destroyed life pods. Then at one point you go to an island. At some point in between those, you'd be able to get the radiation suit, which allows you to go back to the ship and get some new stuff. Get a couple vehicles, which are very useful, especially. Actually, they both kind of have their uses, and I would absolutely build both of them as fast as possible if you're going through it. I guess there's 3 vehicles, but the 2 smaller ones are the ones that you really want to go for as soon as possible. The big one is nice, but I guess the thing with that one is it's kind of like a mobile base, which is fine for the most part, as long as you're not running into leviathans, because then it's like, okay, that thing could be destroyed and you don't want to deal with that. But yeah, so you start out surviving, then it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to explore a little more, get some materials, build some stuff, some tools for myself, and then I can go out further and start exploring more. I can upgrade my stuff to go deeper or do this and that, and then at some point the world kind of opens up for you for the most part. But then again, even past that, you build more stuff, blah blah blah. You still have to keep surviving, and again, the food and water system, it's just more annoying than anything. It's like you don't really realize how fast that kind of stuff drains until you're out on like an expedition of some kind, and then you run out of food and water, and you're like, I've barely been out here for any amount of time. Like, why is that so fast? Luckily there's a couple things that help with that, but it's not the best. But yeah, anyway, the more you build, the further out you can go. I kind of realized at some point that there are a lot of leviathans, and leviathans, like they're more than just aggressive mobs. They're gigantic, and they just litter the map. There's a few areas where they're just non-existent, which is really nice, but you kind of go to the further reaches and certain areas, and they are just everywhere. Like if you go to the other, you're supposed to go into the ship at some point, but if you go to the other side of the ship from where you crash landed, they are just everywhere, and it's just like, come on. And it would be less frustrating if they were easier to kill. I went after one of the weaker ones at one point, just to get it out of my way, and it took me a good while. I don't even remember how long it took. It took because you need 2 things to beat one of them. You need the stasis rifle and the knife, and depending on which knife you have, because you can upgrade the knife once, but depending on which knife you have, you could take an hour or like 20 minutes, and it's just like, okay. And then that's the weakest one, and there's ones with more health and maybe more mobility. I'm not really sure. I mean, there is one at one point that just shoots fireballs at you, and it's too much. It's like, why would I ever be expected to do anything to these at all? I guess there's actually one other way to kill them. You get the prawn suit and get the drill arm, but it's not it's not really worth it to fight them most of the time. It's better to just avoid them. You can tell by how much I've talked about them. They were a huge thorn in my side. I mean, honestly, if there were fewer of those, I'd be happier because there are so many other aggressive mobs in areas where you need stuff there. Like if there was like one of them that you like one or two of them that you had to fight and kill, or if they had drops that actually they don't have any drops as far as I know. They just die, and it's like why? And then there's actually another mob that drops a very important item, drops their teeth, but they don't drop them when they're dead, and you can't retrieve them when they're dead. You can only get them while they're alive, and that's very odd. It's like, okay, well, if they're dead, I can just take their teeth out, right? No, no, okay. I have to wait for them to pick up a chunk of metal. Okay, okay. Anyway, as far as everything else, as far as like aside from the kind of annoying stuff that I found throughout the game's gorgeous. I mean, there's a lot to explore. There's 2 islands on the game, which it's Subnautica. It's all about underwater. It makes sense that there's not a whole lot of land. The 2 islands do give you a lot of important stuff, a lot of materials, story bits, good stuff. And then there's a few areas in the game which that's just beautiful, or just exciting to look at. Again, it's a shame that there's so many Leviathans throughout the game that I couldn't get full enjoyment out of every place because I wanted to avoid those areas. But yeah, the areas that you can go to easily without any risk, or with like minimal risk, and it's just like normal mobs, normal like aggressive mobs, and it's like, okay. I mean, there's a couple like annoying ones, and then there's one really, really annoying one that teleports everything. But I mean, there's plenty of areas where it's so fun to just traverse them, and then you find shipwreckages and other stuff, and it's just so cool to just go everywhere. And then there's the crafting system's pretty good. I didn't use everything. There was probably a few things that actually would have helped that I didn't use. But unlucky me, I have mind goblins, and just I have to micromanage, and I avoid some things and that I shouldn't, and I over focus on things that I shouldn't, which again is why I don't play a lot of open world survival games that don't have any sort of fight back mechanic. But overall, despite a few annoyances, I did enjoy myself. I probably could have managed my time a little better, but I mean, it was good. The story was okay. It was decent. It got a little weird at the end, but yeah. I mean, it was fun. I do feel like there could have been a little more emphasis on cave exploration because while there are many caves in the game, there are like two or three that you go in and are like actually important. Either you get a radio transmission from there and it gives you important mechanical stuff, or it's actually somewhere you need to go to really progress the game. But there's not a whole lot where it's like, oh, you can just go here and there's really good stuff here. It's like, nah, you can get that stuff from elsewhere, or I don't know. But I would say my biggest complaint was the day-night cycle. That is the one thing I really didn't like. Other than that, most of the game was pretty good. I did at some point I got like not stuck, but I wasn't sure what to do, and I wasn't sure what my goal was. So I ended up looking up an interactive map, which the only other time I've done that was for Breath of the Wild so that I could get all the shrines. And it was mostly good. There were a couple things I didn't go to because they were in very dangerous areas. It helped me avoid a lot of Leviathans, and there were a few things that I think were misplaced or just confusing because it's just top down and it doesn't account for like certain caves, twists and turns, stuff like that. But overall, I did find it very helpful. Am I going to play Sub-Zero or Below Zero? What is it? Yeah, it's Below Zero. I don't know. For sure not right now. Eventually, maybe not. Not really sure. I'm not sure how I feel. But I definitely need a break, even if I am going to continue. But I don't know. I mean, it was fun. It was just minimally fun. Not generally my type of game, but what you can do. So that's what I think about Subnautica. Thank you for listening. make sure you press all the buttons, and I hope you have a great day.